Hey everyone, welcome back to Kubrick Corner with me, Sean Wilson. So we're at the end of 2018, and of course that means it's the time for lists. So I'm joined by my good friend Sven. You alright,
Hi, Sean. Yeah, I'm all good. Thanks for inviting me again.
It's alright. What do you think about lists and where we've been in 2018 in terms of movies?
I made a top 50, and I was like, film 50 is even like a film that I'm happy to recommend to people. Like that,
Yeah.
Just that's testament of how good 2018 was as a film.
It's been astonishing,
I think.
isn't it?
And I was like, I want to include this film and this film.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's been an amazing film, both in the multiplex and in the art house cinemas.
Yeah. I completely agree. Yeah, and as is usual with our videos, we're recording it in Bristol's wonderful Watershed cinema, where you of course work. Such a privilege to record these in this cinema, and like you say, yeah, it's been an extraordinary year for like art house and mainstream movies. So we are going to take you through our top 10 films of 2018. So I thought I'd start with your number 10.
Yeah, I think maybe before we go, I think we can already say that we don't have a lot of overlap on our list.
No, which is actually quite unusual.
Which is quite interesting. And once again, that shows how much the range of quality of film year 2018. I want to kick things off with a French film that came out earlier this year called BPM, 120 beats per minute. Which is a French film. The name of the director, I'm just drawing a blank now.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, it tells a story about the rise of the HIV awareness in Paris in the early 90s, and the organization ACT UP that sort of wants to raise the awareness by campaigning. And I think it's a very impassionate film and really thoughtful film that really shows human relationships behind it. I think it's a very warm film with humor and sadness. It played in Cannes a couple of years ago, but it wasn't until this year that it made it into the UK cinemas. And yeah, I thought it was absolutely incredible. A very moving tearjerker, but also really, really uplifting.
It's a really good choice, actually. Yeah, I really liked it. Again, it's just been squeezed out from the. It has been an extraordinary foreign language movies as well, and obviously I'll get to one of mine momentarily. But my number 10 choice is Hereditary, the feature film debut from Ari Aster, who I was fortunate enough to interview and was a delight to interview. But this just pitched as a family melodrama that descends into hell, deliberate echoes of Rosemary's Baby, The Shining, beautiful visual aesthetic that repeated imagery of dolls' houses and interior landscapes that make the characters feel like they're at the mercy of some malevolent force, like they're pawns being moved around, anchored by a brilliant central performance from Toni Collette.
Yeah, I've seen the film a couple of times now, and I'm really surprised by how confident it is as a film.
Yes.
I think he's a first-time filmmaker, and every single frame of that film is filled with tension and dread.
Yeah.
Even if you really can't put your finger on where it comes from, and that's something that I really, really admired about it. Yeah, and I'm really curious to see where Ari Aster's career is going to take him.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's a really, really astute psychological thriller and genuinely quite frightening. And yeah, for that reason, it gets in at number 10. So for me, on to your number 9.
On number 9, a film that unfortunately here in the UK went straight to Netflix, but managed to get a bigger release elsewhere. I was fortunate enough to see it at a big screen. There were a handful of big theatrical showings in the country, but that's Annihilation, Alex Garland's follow-up to Ex Machina film. It's hard to describe what it is. It is kind of like a horror story. It's a survival story. It's one of those films, the less you know about it, the better.
Yeah.
It's about a group of scientists, researchers, who are sort of being sent into an area where things have gone awry. I think it's sort of like a mystery box of a film, but also a psychological portrait of femininity, drawn by a male director, but I think he gets really good performances out of all of his lead actresses.
Yeah, including obviously Natalie Portman, Tessa Thompson and so on. I had mixed feelings on it. because I loved Ex Machina, and indeed I interviewed Jeff Barrow and Ben Salisbury, the composers of Annihilation and Ex Machina here, which is one of my highlights of the year. But as a piece of filmmaking, I had mixed feelings on Annihilation, but I completely agree with you that it's so ambitious and conceptually ambitious, and obviously we should say it's based on Jeff Vandermeer's book as well. That's very, very different from the book, which might have been one of my issues with it. It's more Alex Garland's interpretation of what the book actually is.
Oh yeah, I think I've read the book as well, and he just takes like the mere bare bones of the book, and then he just builds on it, and he runs with it, and he does something completely different with it. And I think it's probably one of the most cinematic films of the year. It's very, very bold, and I can definitely imagine that they put like a lot of people off, and I can see why Paramount, the distributor, said like, I think this is going to bomb in the cinema, and why they loaded it off to Netflix in this country. In the US, it bombed completely as a film, which already shows that they knew what they had on their hands. But yeah, it's a very ambitious film, and I don't really think that they make enough of these films anymore.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, for all its flaws, it's a very, very commendable project. In it, my next film on this list, in at number 9, is Custody, which is Xavier Legrand's another directorial debut, this time from Xavier Legrand, the French filmmaker. There's been a lot of scary films this year. I have to say this, in spite of the fact that it's not a horror film, is actually one of the scariest that I've ever seen. It's about a domestic fallout between a husband and wife. It's implied that the husband has been abusive. The young son falls under the custody of the father, and what Xavier Legrand does brilliantly is he plays off the physicality of the father, who's a big, imposing presence, brilliantly played by Denis Ménochet, against the actor playing the boy. Really frightening, and it builds, I have to say, probably the scariest 10 minutes I've seen in a film this year. Again, it's not horror that comes from a supernatural place, it's all human, and it's so ruthlessly absurd. It builds tension so well, and the performances I thought were brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's why the film is so scary, because it's really rooted in reality.
Yeah.
It is like a story you've heard. You know people like that. You've heard these stories. It's like something that happens next door, and that's what makes it so scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, and throughout most of the film, I was on the edge of my seat. I thought like the last 15, 20 minutes, I thought it was a bit cheap maybe, how it went into like full-on horror mode.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't really know how else the director could have concluded that story. But all in all, I thought it was also a very great film.
Yeah, really, really scary. So on to your number 8. I'm already liking this list already. We already covered such brilliant ground already.
My next film is a film from earlier this year. Won the Film Festival of Cannes last year, and it's a film, The Square, by Ruben Östlund. And there's something quite ironic that we are recording this at sort of like an independent art venue. And also the fact watching this film at an independent art venue is maybe like part of the experience. It basically tells the story of an art curator who is basically going through a little bit of an existential crisis. Like, he is losing grip with reality, he's losing grip with his family and the people around him, all for various reasons. And it's a film with a lot of facets, and it's a film that is, I think, very messy. It's a bit all over the place, but I loved it because of its messiness, and I loved it because of all the ideas that it was trying to portray.
Yeah.
It's a film as performance art, more as cinema, I think. And it's probably the film that made me feel the most awkward of any film of all year.
Are you talking about the bit with Terry Notary, who obviously does motion capture in Planet of the Apes, where he is the guy at the centre of the art installation who comes in acting as the ape character?
Yeah, it's probably one of the most tense scenes of the entire year.
It is, it really is, yeah.
Yeah, it's a film that really swings for the fences, really goes for it. I really liked it. And also, the fact that it won the Golden Palm in Cannes, I found really, really bizarre, because people who were awarding this film must have realised that it is a film about themselves. I think that's very interesting.
Excellent choice. I loved Ruben Östlund's previous film Force Majeure more than this one, but I do think it's a commendable choice. So my number 8, They Shall Not Grow Old. Peter Jackson's extraordinary World War One documentary that people may have seen screened on the BBC on Remembrance Sunday. Peter Jackson, for me, is a filmmaker who's been off the boil for quite a long time now. I think ever since Lord of the Rings, he's got too much money, too many computers, and I've wanted to see him do a project that feels personal. I don't think things like The Hobbit felt personal at all. And clearly what he's done with this is he said he's derived inspiration from his grandfather who's served in World War One. And he and his team have done an extraordinary thing of going into the Imperial War Museum and BBC archives and colorising the footage, matching that with very, very carefully selected narration from the veterans, and also using lip readers to overdub what the soldiers might be saying. And what it does, it makes the preceding 100 years just float away. It's absolutely a real phenomenal achievement, very, very powerful. Not a gimmick. I've seen some reviews that say it's a gimmick. I didn't think it was a gimmick at all.
Yeah, there was about a tiny bit of controversy in the wake of the film's release,
which is understandable.
Yeah, a lot of people like the film is when you're going to touch like old footage, of course that controversy is going to rise. But I think he has just has like a lot of respect for the source material. And he's very passionate about World War One. Like I know, like he was planning to remake the Dam Busters at one point, one of those like essential World War One films. But like I think this is maybe like the ultimate World War One documentary I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's so accurate and so moving.
Yeah. Completely agree. Yeah, and Peter Jackson back on top form. Yeah. So on to your next movie then. So we are on number 7.
Yeah, I'm going to go for another Netflix film.
Okay.
A film 25 years in the making. I don't know if you've seen it. It's Orson Welles' The Other Side of the Wind.
I did see this.
Earlier on I was talking about like a messy film, and oh god, is this messy? This is the definition of messy. It's all over the place. But I think it is a testament to Orson Welles' talent. It's a film that was made 25 years ago when he was sort of like looking... From outward, he was looking at New Hollywood that was just developing, and he was trying to tell a story about that, and it kind of like spin out of control. It ran out of funds, ran out of budget. He closed it down, but now because of with the help of a lot of producers and archivists, they managed to put the film together. Netflix gave a lot of money, which is really weird. That Netflix is sort of like the savior of classic cinema.
Yeah.
And it's a very wild and ambitious fever dream about a director played by John Huston, who is a little bit like Orson Welles, a megalomaniac, who is very ambitious, and it is just a chamber piece of all the kind of people who he meets. Throughout the film, we get this recreation of a 1970s art house prestige that plays a little bit like an Antonioni film. So as I said, it's a very wild, rambunctious film, but I think it's a film that I more admire than I truly love.
Yeah.
But I had a really good time with it.
Yeah, I found it quite a challenging watch, I must admit. I mean, it reflects attitudes of the time that it was made, and some of those attitudes are quite challenging, to say the least. But and it's a time capsule, isn't it? That's what you expect. Interesting choice. Well, my number 7 is, and I believe this is one of the few. We said we've got very few intersection points in our list. One of them, my number 7 is Roma. Probably no surprise there. My first Netflix choice on this list, and again, very, very privileged to have seen this on the big screen as well, back at the London Film Festival, but now seeing it on Netflix again for the second time just reinforces what an exquisitely beautiful movie this is. Not just the black and white cinematography, not just the sense that you're getting the impression that you're in almost someone else's waking memory, but what you also get is that what comes out the second time round is the observations about gender, about family, and it's got this lovely, not detached point of view, but almost removed sensibility, and it's a really good. I mean, Alfonso Cuarón is an extraordinary director, and this is clearly his most personal film, and he invested with such depth of feeling on the sound design. The sound is so important, as it is in all of his films. Think of Children of Men with the war zones and how it all-encompassing the sound is. Yeah, I think that it's good that Netflix has picked this up. If it reaches a wide audience, then great. It's a shame that a lot of people are being denied the experience to watch this on the big screen. Those who have are very, very lucky. I think.
Yeah, I've also seen it twice. I've seen it once on the big screen, and I've seen it once on the small screen. And a lot of my favourite films of all time I've seen on the small screen. So I don't want to be that person who's going to say like, oh yeah, you have to see this on the small on the big screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was one of my I don't want to give any spoilers where it's ranked on my list, but it's also on my list. So maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
We'll come on to that next. Yeah. So we are on to number 6, I believe. And what have you got?
I got Warwick Thornton's Sweet Country, which is an Australian western, in which the Australian director Warwick Thornton sort of like uses the template of a western basically to interrogate his own history and the way how indigenous people were basically like colonized and treated and abused. And it's basically it's a mystery, it's a crime story, all wrapped into this very ambitious film. It's also like a road movie. It's a chase story. It's a film with a lot of really interesting layers to it. And I think all the indigenous actors, they all deliver tremendous performances. I've seen it early in the year. I haven't seen it since. I think it's a film that I really want to rewatch. I don't know where it would stand on my list if I rewatch it, but it left a lot of impact on me when I watched it.
It's same with me. This was actually on my list until probably about 2 or 3 months ago, and we've had a flurry of really quite incredible movies in the November-December period, and it just got shunted out. I thought it was an extraordinary movie as well, and the whole... there is a scene... there is a court scene which is almost like the embodiment of like a kangaroo court, and it almost like takes the metaphor to its logical conclusion, which is very, very powerful. Yeah, I completely agree. It touches on the way it touches on race and on gender, and you've got these veteran Australian actors like Sam Neill, Brian Brown giving like career best performances. Yeah, I was really, really almost ashamed of myself to have cut this one out, because I think Warwick Thornton's done a brilliant job with it. Yeah, really, really powerful. So on to my number 6 then, to conclude the first half of this video. Mary Poppins Returns.
Surprise!
I know. I was waiting to see if this was going to get in the list, and it did, because it's lovely. And what can I say? It's just such a charming, sparkling, feel-good experience that preserves the message of the original movie, which is that selflessness and compassion without vanity is really important. The idea that Mary, as brilliantly played by Emily Blunt in this new one, is the facilitator. She is there to redeem the parents who by proxy will mend the relationship with the children, except this time it's the older Michael Banks played by Ben Whishaw who needs saving. Lovely sense of nostalgia, just enough nips and tucks round the outside to warrant it. I've seen a few reviews that said it's a cash grab. I really don't think it is. I think it's made with a lot more heart and a lot more honesty than that. And it works because, I mean, the songs are magnificent, the supporting cast is great, including Lin-Manuel Miranda, but it's Emily Blunt. She does not put a foot wrong in anything, and she goes through the whole roster in this. She has to fashion her own interpretation of the character, she has to live up to Julie Andrews, she has to sing, she has to dance, she has to do this, what she's described as very Rosalind Russell, His Girl Friday style, acerbic, like sort of scattergun delivery. I thought I really, really liked it. I thought it was really charming, and given I've not liked director Rob Marshall's films before, it came as something a surprise to me, or maybe it didn't, because it's Mary Poppins.
I haven't seen it yet, but as of before I was fairly skeptical. I don't really have a very strong connection with the original one. I think through osmosis I might have seen the original one. I can barely remember what happened, but I must have seen it at some point. So it's not a film that I hold really dear to my heart. So, and I'm also not a big fan of director Rob Marshall.
Yeah.
I don't really like. He has done like a Pirates of the Caribbean
and
film.
Chicago and 9. Yeah,
I liked Chicago, but I didn't like 9. Yeah. I didn't really like Into the Woods, which
likewise, which also had Emily Blunt in it, of course. Yeah.
I do love Emily Blunt, so you make me curious. But I think that's going to be like a Christmas treat for the family. Yeah, and then I'm pretty sure like a spoonful of sugar will make it go down.
It will, and it's got a really, really lovely message. I think you're right. It's going to play very well at this time. Yeah. Well, that is so films 10 to 6 in our end of the year rundown. I think that's really varied already, isn't it?
It is quite varied, but there's going to be a lot more like surprises coming up in the second part.
Yeah, great. So stay tuned for that, and don't forget to drop a comment at Kubrick Corner with your own best films of the year, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, cheers.
All right.